how to do this. And today we're doing, of course, we're working with fixtures, and and the what I want to touch about on this 3D printing segment in episode 13 on Tuesday is that how we design for real. You'll see and you heard and you saw probably tons and tons of fixture, and you're like, what were they thinking? If you've been into this world, lighting world for a while, you saw all kinds of trends and fashion and go in and out, and but classic always stays. And the other thing too is that if you install any of those fixtures, you're always also like, what the hell? Who they talk to? How do they ever manage to come to this design? So today we're going to talk about that, designing for real use, and which is the continuity on sources and its continuity on different, aspect. We touch about 3D printing, but we will explore how when we print lighting fixtures, we have an indefinite opportunity world. But how do we make sense out of this? How do we orient ourselves? How do we bring the best of us so that we move from experimentation to real fixtures or real product or real families of product and so forth. So designing fixtures that people can actually use, not only just something, a trip we had and we took a couple glass of wine and we, oh yeah, I have an idea and it's just about creating an object. No, but what about creating something that is useful, something that is duplicatable, something that create light that have a purpose, right? And 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 how do we define real use? Well, of course, the light has to have a purpose, and also it has to fit into a certain space, has to give a comfortable experience. In 3D printing, it's very easy to create something interesting because we have no limit. And sometimes it's by accident, sometimes it's wanted, sometimes it's accident. And then we create something and we say, oh, well, what about this? What is this? But where it comes a little harder to do is when we start creating something that is useful, something that is needed and wanted. And the function that defines success, not only appearance, not only something that, oh, maybe it will work. No, that's something that will tick all the boxes. And we'll see that as we go through. Of course, it has to be something that's close to you. If you don't, especially when you design for yourself, or if you design a concept, you want something that's in that direction, in that vein. So you'll take, all basic consideration like the glare control, like having, a comfortable brightness, not too bright, not too dark, and, stability of the fixture so that it's not flimsy and it doesn't bend or doesn't look too weird. How the light behave with the object and all of that. Maybe have some softness to the fixture, maybe a little bit of control, maybe not directly visible to ourselves. But one of the most important thing is also the scale. Because when we design a place, we don't want to have a fixture that is too large for the space or too small. So how do we know scales? And it's funny because today I'm meeting a client and we cut up some cardboard and we're going to make some tests on the wall because we're talking about signage and branding and all that stuff. And I cut out some cardboard, some 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, just to give them a visual idea how, the balance should be and what scale of the logo we should go. And then also we're going to think about where does this beautiful fixture is going to go. Is it going to be something on a track? Is it going to be something that is fixed in position that's going to stay there? Is it taking all the walls so we cannot enhance it with art or other lighting? Basically, all the key consideration up to, even the light direction, which way the light's going to go, what's going to happen on the wall, what's going to be reflecting from the wall. Is it going to be a direct fixture, an indirect fixture, general diffuse fixtures? How does our light is going to behave into the space, and what are we going to do with it, and so forth. If you cannot predict that, then nobody can. And no matter how good your printer is, no matter how talented is your CAD people, if you don't understand and if you don't direct them, they'll be garbage in, garbage out, garbage in, garbage out. So you have to have this balance and this idea that you want from the beginning. Now, it doesn't mean to be the best idea, doesn't mean to be a final idea, doesn't mean to be the most aesthetical. You can start with a regular geometric shape and then, modulate with cardboard, duct tape, whatever you want, so that you achieve whatever you want, and then the desire you want, and also to give your team some parameter so that you're all working in one direction. Again, I will never emphasize enough on scale, because once we have a wall, or if we have a window, or if we have a piece of furniture, these are all consideration that we have to take we have to take in, because depending on the wall size, depending on the furniture size, depending on the window size, depending on the door size, they will also interact, and everything is a whole. So if you have very little fixtures on a big wall, it looks like you ran out of money. If you have very big fixtures on a small wall, it looks like you didn't know what you were to do. And the best way to do this is think high level. Start looking at eye level and what's happening when you're looking from your eyes. If you have a big wall, right, where does your eye goes? It will not go at 5 feet. It'll go in the middle of the wall. So that's the relationship you want to maintain. If you have a small wall, then your eye level is going to go lower. And in a normal space, then we have standards that are predetermined by NEC code, by all kinds, the AIA code, and all kinds of known standards. When we talk about suspension, it's the same thing. When we have a piece that is suspended in space, we have a lot of consideration to look at. And you have to think in 3 dimensions. You have to think of the viewing angle from different angles, from different doors, from different corners in the space. You have to look for glare. Where does the glare is? Is it at 5 feet from it? Is it at 25 feet? Is it at 100 feet? How do you handle this glare, right? And then you will have also your lighting distribution. Is it just a circle on the ground? Or is it a general diffuse that makes your whole space? Is it a combination of directional and general diffuse? The light will behave different ways, depending on what you want to create. And again, today we're talking about fixtures and what you are creating. We're not talking about other people's design. We're not talking about anything like this. Although I suggest to you to look at other people's work. and have your own little notepad and take your notes, which work, which doesn't work. So when you create your own lighting fixtures, you have at least some parameter to start with. Last place you want to look at is a catalog, because you don't have the scale, you don't have a context, you don't have, most of the picture in catalogs are Photoshop anyway. So you will have some that are genuine, most of them are not. So you have false data. The best data you can get, the best behavior you can observe is yourself in the space. And this is the first thing I always ask manufacturer, where can I see it for myself? And then normally they'll say, well, go to that place. And then they tell the person that's in charge of maintenance to meet me there. And then I can ask them the question, how did you wire this? How is it holding? How did you install it? What do you do when you have to replace something? How do you maintain it? How long has it been there? What's the cleaning frequency? And all these questions are coming, down, because now I have the person that is operating it every day. If we do downlight, we will be concerned about glow. What is the spill light? What combination of directional on the wall that are downlight, right, in lighting up articles, or highlighting artifact, or highlighting architectural cove, or. So downlights have also their own vocabulary when you think about lights, and how can you enhance their presence? How can you create some more interesting ways of modulating light or working with it to create another level of experience, enhance the experience, make it more appealing to the eyes, making more interesting as they're shaped, making the patterns on the wall a bit more, interesting. So again, downlights have their own dialogue, and also they will dictate very much what quantity you use. Are you using a lower quantity? Are you using a higher quantity? Are you using many? Are you using less? Are you using big size, small size, variety of size? Are you using square? Are you using circles? Are you using whatever, rectangular or elliptical? All of that is related to the size of your ceiling and also the size of the room. Plus, in that case, the height. How high is the table? How high is the furniture? How high is the cabinets? How high is, the windows? And all of those elements are part of your programming. How are you going to deal with it? How are you going to create these accessories? How are you going to bring in some beautiful little effect so that it enhances the space and make the downlight or the fixture work a little bit better for you? Of course, the size of the object is one of the most important things, because if you have too much light on a small object, it will be overwhelming. Same thing if you don't have enough. So when you're experimenting to build your fixture, it's very important to do a mock-up. Very important to have different size, different power, so that you can look for yourself and not just think that, oh yeah, we can put a dimmer on this. Oh yeah, we can change the size of the ring. If you have a low ceiling and you put 6-inch diameter recess, even if you have a 1-inch aperture, it still look ugly. You still have a 6-inch hole. So the relationship to the user, if you have a 25-foot ceiling, that it's not the same relationship that you have. You can put an 8-inch, maybe a 12-inch, and it won't affect as much even if you have a 4-inch par 38 or a 6-inch par 36, or depending the relationship of the space and the height, the size of the light output will matter or will not matter. And of course, the bigger it is, the more option you have. When you have a 1-inch hole and then 1-inch fixtures, the option to modify, create, and do whatever you want is much harder and much more complicated. Now, when we talk about um, fixtures, some of the common issue I would say is that you have a contractor that go and he buys a big lot of fixtures. Some are too small. Some are too big, right? We were saying 1 inch or 6 inch or 3 inch, and they're all like this. While you could have easily put some 2 inch, some place you can put some 1 inch, some other place you can put some 6 inch. Or and what does that do is that gives you setups that are out of context because you have some 6 inch in your 20-foot reception area, 20-foot high reception area, doesn't mean that you need 6 inch in your 6, 7 feet, let's say 7 feet conference room. You see, maybe you want to have smaller fixture in a conference room. Doesn't need. And the same thing for the accessory that goes with it. Maybe you have some baffle that are white because you don't really care about the glare that are on the 20-foot ceiling. But when you are in the conference room and you're looking at, let's say, a TV or something, because you do video conferencing, having white baffle will give you too much glare. So maybe you want to have a different color baffle. Same thing for accessory. Same thing for luminaire. Maybe you're building up in 3D this beautiful chandelier, and then from under is very glary, which you know is not a good idea. Speaking of idea, it is also a good idea to think when you're building, and that's why I say go see for yourself to not forget about daylight, the natural light. Why? Because the contribution of natural light is very, very powerful. And sometimes you can use it to your advantage to modulate with the sun and create these beautiful shape for free. I mean, not for free because you have to build some panels that have shape that when the sun hits them, it will create these beautiful leaf pattern or geographic shape or. But it is important to understand that you have you know natural light that can come and enhance the space. So maybe you don't need that much light during the day, but then again you can modulate, you can transfer, you can shift, you can play with the sunlight coming in to create something in the ceiling, something on the wall, something on in the window, or even maybe doing some cool masking on the window or in the shades or. So natural light is also your best friend or your worst enemy, because if you have something that you want to create this very subtle effect and you have a lot of natural light coming in, you're not going to see it. And if most of the time that you're doing is space and it's used during daylight, all this effect and all this money and all this time you're spending only going to be used in the winter because the sun goes down earlier. Thinking, going, experimenting, watching, again, being there will tell you the story. And again, make prototype. Take one print and then start playing with it. take the same print, put it somewhere, and start asking people, what do you think about that? What do you think? And start gathering information. That will give you a lot of data on the direction you're going. Also, when people have ideas and they start to give their input and their feedback, it creates a better bond. It creates a better communication, creates a tighter team. And the idea is not to come in and say you know everything and you're doing, but also asking them for their collaboration so that you can enhance the whole and elevate the whole design concept. And this also apply for objects that are on the table, like table lamp, wall sconce, pendant, etc., etc., or just accessory for the windows, or accessories for downlight, or you know. So testing in real condition, testing with people on real object is a very, very fast way to learn and also understand if you are in the right direction. Because in your head, you may think, yes, this is what I want to do, this is it. And then the design team comes in and they look at it and they said, oh my God, this is not at all what we thought we were doing. This is not at all where the direction we want to go. And the client doesn't like it. And they're always going to put it on the client. They'll never say it's them. But, when you think about it, the client hired them because they don't want to offend you, or they don't want you to think that, they have something against you. But if you implicate them and if you bring them in the process, it's part of them too. And if for real the client doesn't like, now they have the argument and they have also the responsibility because they contribute and they have the backstory to fill in the void so that the client can say, oh yeah, well, I didn't see it that way. And you're right. When the colors and all the accessory and the carpet and the wallpaper and everything is there, I think it's going to work great. And that's how you want to. And maybe, they'll have a minimal change to do because they already, are part of the process. Observe, comfort. One of the biggest problem I see in custom lighting, and this it's not really for 3D printing, but in general in custom lighting, because I've been in custom lighting for a long time and I saw hundreds and hundreds of fixtures, is most fixtures designers design for themselves. They design something they like. They design something that's going to please them. And I call it designer without case. And they don't ask, they don't get involved, they don't take anything in consideration. They just design something, they try to shove it in your throat and say, this is it. It's my way or the highway. And this has a certain weight, but it has more limitation than weight. Because you may had an idea for a fixture, or you may want to involve a designer in your project, and you may like the style of somebody, but when you understand that it's going to be their way or the highway, they're going to go in their studio, they're going to design something. Sometimes it's just something they take out of their pile of shit, and then they just throw it at you and say, well, this is it, right? And this happened to me. I didn't do that, but this happened because, like I said, I go and I visit, and sometimes you see stuff on the shelf and then it ends up in the client's hand, and they tell the client that's a very, unique piece and it has all of this, and that was a piece that was sitting on the shelf. I'm not declining that it doesn't have any sentimental or design or research, but they didn't make an effort to enhance the project. They just made an effort to enhance their pocket. They sold something to the client, and because it's their name, and maybe it fits. I saw some case where we took some stuff that was already manufactured and put it on a project, and it fits. So I'm not saying it's a good or bad situation. I'm just saying it is. This is one of the biggest problem in general, is that, and I hate to speak in generality, but in that case is that designers design stuff without the context. They ignore the scale, right? They'll be like, well, this is going to be, that's it. Yeah. Now, just think that if you're a traditional manufacturer, it is a problem to scale. If you design a 10-inch fixtures and you need a 16-inch, the tooling is not the same. The material is not the same. The fixtures, the source, the mounting, everything changed, and there's a whole chain reaction attached to it. When you 3D print and you know what you're doing and you create mock-ups, you kind of understand. And people that are, and I call it, in lighting, I call the battle of the 0.1. If you go from a 10-inch to 11-inch, honestly, it doesn't change much. But if you go to a 10-inch to a 16-inch, in volume, it does change a lot. And then a 16-inch to a 24-inch, it does have another purpose. But 16-inch to 17-inch, that's what I think about it. The other thing is that people will often focus only on the form. Well, I want a circle, I want a circle, I want a circle, I want a circle. Well, what about an octagon? What about a square? Or what about a rectangular? Or what about an oval? And. So you bringing ideas and reminders that maybe we could use something else, maybe we can add on, maybe we can modify, maybe we can stretch, maybe we can condense, is also part of the process. Sometimes it doesn't fit the space. Sometimes it's not going to fit. Maybe that's what it is. Okay. And sometimes custom is not the solution. Solution is a couple down light. That's it. You don't need to have custom. So you have to be ready to say, okay, let's clean up the board and see and make sure that, let's start from scratch and redo our exercise. And maybe the conclusion is that, well, we don't need something custom. We don't need that something that's 3D print. This is really bad for me because it's what I do. But I can see that sometimes it's not about me. The project and the whole design intent is not about what I think. It's about the project. It's about the vision. It's about the design team. And it's about, making something that look balanced. It's really hard. But it is possible. Yesterday I was helping. No, Sunday we went to a jewelry store to shop for a wedding ring for one of my friends. And we talked to the sales guy, and he says, "Well, we are very well paid. We're not paid by commission." And that was the first time I heard that, because he said, "I don't care what you buy. I just want you to buy the right thing for you and for your wife." It was very refreshing in this world where everybody is paid by commission and they try to oversell and they try to over design. It's very, very, very hard to walk away from a sale or walk away from over designing something. But sometimes that's what it takes. And you have to be ready to do it. Like to see an opportunity and make sure that your client also understand why. It's not just walk away. You explain. He said, yes, I could add this and I could add that, but that would look way too cluster. First, the client will appreciate you because you tell him the truth and you're the expert. So you understand. Second, You'll understand that you're going to be losing money, but the next time he has a project or when he talks about you, he will give you amazing referral. So on the long run, you'll win a lot because you didn't get that commission to build an additional fixtures. And perhaps he's going to be, now that you liberate that money, you'll say, well, what about the garden? What about the fact that we wanted to create this sculpture or this installation, and maybe we can take that money and put it there instead? So you will have, by being brutally honest, you'll have, you know, you'll be rewarded for it because you respect the design intent. You have a purpose in what you do, and you can also, in real time, admit that no, you don't need something. So it doesn't need to be absolutely the most valuable person for me is the one that you don't know you need, not the one that's yelling the loudest. Funny enough, one of my partner banker was telling me, Bob, it's the squeakiest wheel that get the oil. What a weird way to think, right? What a weird way to, maybe it's true, maybe it's not true, but in my world, if I have to go to bed at night, and I sleep very well, I sleep like a baby. So whenever I do a proposal, I do it for the best intent of the client, not for what it's going to bring me. And it's not about me. Again, I repeat, lighting is nothing. If I don't have architecture, if I don't have design, if I don't have beautiful object, if I don't have a space, if I don't, I'm useless. I don't do anything. I may have the best 3D printer, the best material, the best design team. If we don't have some function, if we don't have real value, we don't bring any real value to the project, I'm I'm useless and I'm not needed and wanted. I'd rather do something else. So make sure that when it's time, you shine, and if it's not the time, it's not the time. And you can pass the offer. You can say, okay, well, but explain it to the client clearly. Maybe they want it. They said, Bob, I really, really want you to create something for me. Well, guess what? There's 1,000 other opportunity we can do. You can create art. You can create, you know, uh, landscape. I can create. I mean, I have a whole array of creation I can do that won't overwhelm the design that we're working in. Because what I'm selling, it's not just creativity. What I'm selling is something that's going to be there to be admired for a long time. I'm selling longevity. I'm selling, like the beauty, the not the beauty. I'm selling simplicity. I'm selling also, the fact that you walk into a space and you don't feel aggressive, the calmness. So all of that sometimes required for me to say, no, I'm not going to do more, because if what you did works, and what I came up with is fine, and now let's leave it like that and move on to the next project, or the next phase, or the next area, and so forth. When you have something that works, it's your credibility that is on the game. So when other people are yeah, 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 it's your job and your responsibility to calm them and say, this is it, and we're going to do something else. Especially if you have a purpose. I design space that are for real use. And even as an artist, when I design art, it has a message. If I cannot communicate a message, then it's, for me, it's not art. If it's just a bunch of shit and I throw it on the wall and I say, "Oh, this is art," this is not art. If it doesn't, communicate something, I fail my purpose, and I will not sell it. I'm not just there to sell design. Design is, again, it's part of a whole. It's a history. There's a whole history on its own, and that's the most important part for me. So whenever I print something in 3D and I want to contribute with the lighting fixtures, it has to be part of that same history. It's not an object. It has to be part of the experience. It has to be, you know, very well integrated in the space. That it's a table lamp, that it's a wall sconce, a pendant, a track head, accessory. Each one of them have a specific role. And when the function leads, well, now the design will follow naturally. But if you don't have any idea what you're doing and and you just want to sell stuff, then you're probably gonna have a very sad life, and your success will take a hit because maybe the first few times you'll make the client swallow whatever you want to sell them, but over time, as people will start to look at your design and look at the way you render and the way, they're going to say, well, we don't want to deal with this guy, we don't want to deal with this person, it brings too much, and what a waste. And the money could have been used better at in another area which is very weak, because he didn't understand that there's a hierarchy in the design. Some place will require more attention, more money, more trinket. Some other place they're just transition area. Some other place, even if you put a lot, the objects that are in are loud enough and are full of energy by themselves. They don't need all the masquerade around. So if I can tell you, it is a very um, lighting has so many beautiful opportunity because either you create custom stuff, either you enhance what's there, either you use the natural light. I mean, there is so much possibility for you to create around it, and if you understand and if you follow these little steps, you'll be way ahead of the pack. And that's what I wish for you. That's what I wish you to do. If you want to differentiate yourself, if you want to do something out of the common, this is a good way to start. So tomorrow is Wednesday. We're going to talk about manufacturing, and I'm super excited because I had an amazing week last week, and I have some cool things to tell you. So on this